right, so we're going to continue here this hit piece against libertarians. Guy's name is Kevin McCullough. He is a talk show host. I guess his show is on a religious network, and it's distributed on a whole bunch of religious stations across the country.
I've heard Huckabee, by the way, say similar things about how the libertarian influence in the Republican Party was very dangerous.
Libertines.
Yes.
So they're talking about the CPAC situation, the Conservative Political Action Conference, where a bunch of liberty-minded people apparently showed up this year and last and voted Ron Paul in for their presidential candidate in their little straw poll thing.
Yeah, thanks for everybody who went out and did that.
And, of course, they're also doing outreach and things like that at this event. And this is very upsetting to people who believe that the conservative movement should be a certain way, and that is intolerant towards gay people and hateful towards pot smokers.
And warmongering.
In favor of war and in favor of the police state. And it's very upset that these libertarians are coming in and trying to change things.
And then they wonder why Obama won the last election.
Right, and you're absolutely right, Wayne. The fact is, the Republican Party is the party of exclusion.
Yeah, they're out of touch.
You can say whatever you want about the Democratic Party. I'm not for it, but the Republican Party is the party of exclusion. I will tell you. Just imagine for a second what it must be like to be a gay person, and then have your Republican friends saying, "Well, you're a nice person and everything. I don't have any problem with you, but the idea of you getting married to your lover, that's just immoral. That's wrong. It's against the ideas of marriage and against the ideas of God." Well, no frickin' wonder they vote Democrat. Mm-hmm. You know as well as I do that the black folks in America know who which party the KKK vote for. If you're a Mexican, you know what Republicans really feel about your family coming to live with you here in the United States and making a better life for themselves. I'm sorry. You may as a Republican not feel this way. I'm a registered Republican myself, but the Republican Party and its platforms and the people in it, by and large, they make it the party of exclusion, not the party of inclusion. You will not win. You will not stay in power as the party of exclusion.
It's the libertarian in attendance that produced the free pornographic calendar passed out to attendees in 2010.
Nothing pornographic about it.
It is the libertarians in attendance who openly... But this is like some sort of really extremely religious dude.
But it's also a lie. Sometimes these things are done just for the sake of persuasion of their audience, too.
Right. You can't call...
There was a girl that was topless, but she didn't show any nipples.
There wasn't any nippage.
Like
you could see just as much in Sports Illustrated's swimsuit.
You'd call that pornographic, too, though.
But you can't call that pornographic. It's a lie.
True.
There's pornography, and then
but
there's something else.
But if it makes him think about sex, if it makes him think about
But that doesn't make it
women,
pornography.
But he probably calls the J.C. Penney catalog pornography.
That's what I'm telling you.
It's
this
still
guy,
a lie.
Right, but it's his opinion, Mark, about what is and what is not pornography. But you asked,
let me look it up.
There's a famous quote by a judge who was asked, well, how do you know it's pornography? Well, I'll know it when I see it. It's hard for different people to define what is pornographic in different ways. Like, for instance, I consider pornographic only to have sexual connotation. A naked woman or a naked man is not pornographic to me, but people having sex would be pornographic. Not that I have a problem with porn. I certainly don't. But as far as defining it, whereas somebody who's ultra-religious and has been incredibly repressed all of their lives about the idea of sex sees somebody flashing a little skin, they might consider that pornographic because in their mind, they're going to thoughts of sex. To them, that's eliciting in them thoughts of sexual activity. And so therefore, because it titillates them, it's pornographic to them. Anyway, we continue.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, this is, words, pictures, writing, films, etc., designed to stimulate sexual excitement. So I guess if it does that for you, it is.
Apparently, he was stimulated by the Lola calendar, which is what we're presuming he's talking about, the Ladies of Liberty Alliance. It is the libertarians in attendance who openly promote the inclusion of groups like GOP Proud, essentially a gay group, largely as an attempt to silence groups who would speak in strong support of traditional moral values.
Traditional moral values mean we're going to come into your house and we're going to tell you and your lover whether or not you can make a contract to live together and whether or not you can be treated as equally as other people have chosen to do this in the United States of America.
This guy would probably want to ban sodomy, Mark. I mean, this is the kind of guy he is.
I'm just saying, the suggestion that this is immoral, but it's okay for me to employ people at the point of a gun, to collect for their salaries at the point of a gun if necessary.
It's God's will, Mark. It's God's will.
Yeah, well,
the Republicans are just doing God's will.
Yeah. Well, what can I tell you?
It is a libertarian in attendance who slandered President George Bush by claiming his appreciation for the Constitution was best summed up as a damn piece of paper.
Well, actually, George Bush's quote is it's a GD piece of paper. This guy didn't say that his appreciation of it, he was only quoting the man. The man said it's just a GD piece of paper. If you don't like it, take it up with George Bush. It's his quote.
The libertarian in attendance that proclaimed the war to prevent terrorists from regaining strength and coming after our homeland was illegal. And
who would Jesus bomb? That's what I want to know. How many Arabs would Jesus kill in order to keep America safe from the infidel horde?
You're getting red, Mark.
He doesn't sound Christian to me.
This is what Christians sound like, though, these days.
These days?
Some do.
Some do.
There are
some
good Christians that don't do this stuff, and we've got one of them on our show. Her name's Michelle. She's on Monday nights. Anyway, and it's a libertarian in attendance that eschewed, booed, cajoled, and screamed war criminal to Vice President Dick Cheney, a man who served his country with commitment and still attempts to help the world understand the threat of the radical Islamic element devising plans to eliminate us and our allies.
Darth Cheney?
Cheney set in place the torture program that the CIA put on. I mean, the fact is, the stuff that we called torture in World War II, waterboarding, was now part of, that's just interrogation now.
Because Bill O'Reilly said so.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't hold up the virtues of the World War II generation and then say the things that they said about torture weren't true now that we do them.
That's right. There were Japanese soldiers who were executed for waterboarding Americans.
Libertarians and conservatives, he continues, are as different as libertarians and liberals. And that is a true statement. That's the one statement I agree with here. I can't stand it when people will lump the idea of liberty in with conservatism or vice versa with liberalism. I mean, it's a totally different philosophy. It's a philosophy based on the principle that human beings should interact on a consensual basis with one another. And the conservatives and liberals, by and large, do not agree with that principle. So he's right about that. The truth is, libertarians are the worst form of political affiliation in the nation, combining the desire of economic greed with the amoral desire to promote any behavior regardless of its cost to our culture is a stark departure from the intent of the founding fathers.
What is our culture?
That's a great question to ask people that are constantly pounding that pulpit about borders and culture and our culture's being diluted by.
I just mean white people and Jesus. That's what they mean. Come on.
But get them to answer the question. That's the important thing. I'm glad you asked that, Wayne. More coming up here at 800-259-9231. The hit piece continues. We'll also try to sneak your call in at 800-259-9231 in the remaining moments of Free Talk Live. Right, so we continue here with a hit piece over at FoxNews.com by Kevin McCullough, one of the, religious talk show hosts, conservative talk show hosts out there, who is freaking out because liberty-minded people showed up at the Conservative Political Action Conference this year, as they did last year, and as they did last year, again dominated the polls, sending Ron Paul to the winner's seat of this poll, this presidential preference poll that they did, and it's upsetting a lot of people. And so I'm sure he's speaking for a number of so-called conservatives here. He says it's not consistent with the average conservative voter in America, talking about the ideas of libertarian.
I'd agree with that.
Libertarianism. The fact,
but it's getting more consistent.
The fact that so many faith-based conservatives were missing from CPAC and are also arguably the most dependable conservative voter in the country only added to the confusing, bizarre, disrespectful, and in many ways off-putting memories of this year's event. Yes, CPAC enjoyed its largest attendance ever, but one could possibly argue that it was smaller than it would have been if the third leg of the conservative stool, social conservatives, had been the key player they have traditionally been in the past. Well, where were they?
That's right. They're disgusted with their party because it's not living up to their rhetoric.
Well, yeah, they have to know at this point. Well, actually, I'd say the Republicans are more consistent on social conservative issues than they are on fiscal conservative issues. Yeah. When the Republican politicians
hatred, they're more consistent with their hatred towards gays and pot smokers?
The fact is, Republicans will introduce bills that have to do with this, the social conservative stuff. They won't even introduce bills that actually cut the size of government. They have no intention of doing that. Republicans lie about being fiscally conservative, but I think they're really telling the truth about how they feel about gay people getting married, how they feel about immigrants coming to this country, how they feel about
that.
All kinds of socially conservative issues. So, he may very well be right.
But where are they? I mean, he's bitching and moaning here because the libertarian types.
They could have bought a ticket the same as anybody could.
Exactly.
They're not mobilized in the same way.
Well, he's right.
They know that they've got losing issues. The fact is,
and they're just voters. He's talking about the average voter. The average voter isn't an activist. They're just voters. So where are your activists? This speaks to the fact that the libertarian movement is cranking out activists. That the people that encounter the ideas of liberty, it's so exciting to them that they want to get out there and they want to do things. Whereas the average voter doesn't want to do anything. They just want to go and vote for the people that they consider the lesser of two evils or whatever. So to expect any of those people to pick up anything more than the voting pen is absolutely unrealistic. So too bad, buddy. If maybe if you had a message that was actually motivating to people, those people would be there to support it.
Because it isn't Ron Paul, really. Ron Paul's a very imperfect messenger of liberty.
Aren't we all?
I mean, he's not the slick politician.
Yeah.
He talks off the top of his head. I mean, if you think about it, he's not real, quote unquote, presidential. But the message that he espouses is what appeals to people, and the fact that he has the track record of voting consistently libertarian all these years.
And given the fact, this is again by McCullough over at Fox News, and given the fact that the Ron Paul-toting, uber-disrespectful, and in many ways disruptive ballot stuffing has wrecked the straw poll results.
Now it's ballot stuffing.
Pinging completely unelectable candidates in 2 of the top 3 slots. Perhaps more significance should be paid to the straw poll to be conducted by the conference that happens in the fall called the Values Voters Conference.
And didn't they derail that whole recount in the presidential primary a few years back on a technicality with a PayPal payment where they ended up thwarting the recount?
I don't recall that.
Yeah, from what I understand, that's what happened here in New Hampshire.
If social conservatives are the largest portion of the conservative discussion, no attention should be paid to a poll that virtually eliminates their presence altogether.
So where did he come up with the idea that social conservatives are the most important?
He just says they're the largest portion. He says if they are the largest portion of the conservative discussion.
And by the way, Ronald Reagan wasn't even really a Christian. I mean, he was into astrology and stuff, and they always tout him as this great, conservative leader.
Interesting point.
CPAC leaders did the best they could to put on the best conference possible. It wasn't their fault that the libertarian elements within the attendees equate free speech with animalistic expressions. What, did somebody have sex on the stage or something like that? What is he talking about?
It's all smear words.
Especially when visiting someone else's house. Libertarian elements
it's somebody else's house now.
Right, well, they own the Republican
apparently
Party.
They didn't show up is what his claim was. I mean,
right.
Seems like he's kind of
He is very upset. He's very sour grapes. Libertarian elements, he says, because of their strange combination of policies that add up to anarchy without moral limits.
Strange combination of policies which are consistent as the most consistent
There's
set
no
of
combination. It's one idea. It's one principle from which all others are growing. The idea that human beings should interact on a consensual basis.
A peaceful basis, just like Christians should think.
Mm-hmm. And he says because of that, perhaps they should have their own conference and let all the pot smokers and gay marriage supporters come and complain about how the U.S. shouldn't be fighting terrorists while they slander public servants.
Actually, they did have a convention. It was the Ron Paul convention during the Republican convention. The Ron Paul convention drew more people.
Yeah. And the Libertarian Party has a convention, and it has had a bunch of conservatives come in and ruin it, and come in and vote conservative crap into their party policy or platform, whatever they call it, and vote conservative candidates in as their presidential candidates. So this is the same thing that has happened to the Libertarian Party is now happening in reverse to, at the very least, to the CPAC. Whether it will happen to the Republican Party as a larger question and remains unanswered at this point.
They're upset about it.
Well, they were really pissed when the Ron Paul supporters started showing up the Republican Party meetings in 2008 and trying to get their ideas in there. They're shutting off microphones on these people.
Oh, so, they rescheduled one of the votes in Nevada, I believe it was, right?
Yep. There's all kinds of shenanigans and sliminess going on. You can expect more of it to happen over time. And he goes on to say that at the very least, the winner of their straw poll would be somewhat reflective of the title of who they are and what they believe. Well, why don't you just keep pouting, Mr. McCullough, because things aren't going to go away. Liberty-minded
The ideas
people.
of liberty are marching forward, and the ideas of conservatism. Look, the fact is they've been losing ground forever. You know as well as I do that pot is going to be legal at some time in this country in the relatively near future.
Lady Gaga just came out of the closet as a pot smoker. I mean, she's my new hero.
You know as well as I do that, in fact, gay marriage is going to be the law within a couple of decades in this country. You don't, I mean, it already is in New Hampshire.
There's only one way to deal with it. Get together with all your other intolerant brethren and move to one state, and you can have your little intolerance land. Let's go to Larry, listening to WXNT in Indy. Larry, you're on Free Talk Live.
That was a long hit piece, boys.
What's on your mind tonight, Larry?
You know, that deal with the CPAC, that was nothing but a parade of clowns. They even had some colored boy on there to rinse too damn high party or something, talking about how smart Sarah Palin was, and that if he got interviewed, he probably wouldn't know how to answer some of the questions. But the thing about it is, he's running for president, too.
They had the rent is too damn high party guy at CPAC?
Yeah, he's running the McClellan or whoever his name is. That was just a national disgrace. And, you know, you don't hear all the conservatives like Mark Levin, a sadist, on there telling people, and people calling in agreeing with him, that they want their money cut off. Nobody don't want to have their money cut off, boys. You know that. And these talk show hosts come on like Rush Limbaugh. They try to force themselves on people and force people that want to be punished, that want to have a dictator. I mean, it's so stupid.
As long as it's their dictator.
Well, people, hey, check this out, boys. We have been beat down so much that if we did have jobs to get back to work, half of us are going to be disabled or on some drug or some kind of a felony or other crime that we've committed, that we will not be able to go to the job if they are provided for us. So I just think we've gotten ourselves into a bad situation. Nobody wants to live up to it.
Thanks, Larry, for the call and the thoughts tonight. Government certainly isn't going to get us out of it. There's no doubt about that.
I don't know which I'm more uncomfortable with, being called boy or him using the term colored to refer to black people. I don't know.
I think he is black, though.
Maybe.
I'm not sure. This just
could be.
Shot in the dark.
The NAACP still exists.
We're back tomorrow night. Online in the meantime at freetalklive.com.
Justice, it's not about agenda, it's not about mobilizing people, it's about dialing for corporate dollars. These two parties have sold the U.S. government and the American people to the highest bidders.